magic. The ability to see the invisible. If you want to be successful at magic, you will have to have the ability to see the invisible. But why is it important to see the invisible? If you can see the invisible, you can achieve the impossible. It's important to be able to see simple solutions in complicated problems. I'm going to take a quick moment over here and give you a little demonstration. I need a volunteer, and I think I'm going to request my hostess over here to just come and join me on stage. I have over here a simple puzzle, which is, it's a simple horseshoe with another object stuck to it, and I think she will tell you that it's quite impossible to, break it up into two pieces.
I tried backstage and failed, but I'm going to try again.
Let me just show you something very simple. So all you need to do is, if you slip this through this, put it here, and it's out.
Okay, I will try that again.
So I'll leave this with you. So I wanted to demonstrate that how simple solutions can be to complicated problems, but you have to be able to see the invisible. I come from the publishing industry. A few years ago, the publishing industry was going through a little bit of a downturn. A lot of friends of mine asked me, are you okay? Are things okay? And I said, who told you I'm in the publishing industry? I'm in the real estate industry. They were all very confused. They didn't understand what I was speaking. I said, most of my books are 13.5 inches by 9.5 inches, weigh about 1.7 kilos, they're 200 pages, hardbound. If I give you a book, or if you buy any of my books, they're going to occupy the best real estate in your house, your office, or in the place that you like the most. From that day onwards, that piece of land or square footage belongs to me. I have 100,000 square feet right now because I have 100,000 books in the market. I did a book on ancient trade routes. I was given an opportunity to speak to the CEO of the world's largest bank. I went to him and I said, sir, you continue to use the ancient trade routes. And he said, get on with it quickly because you have another 30 seconds before you can make you'll have to end your sales pitch right now. I said, you continue to use the ancient trade routes because your development centers in Southeast Asia continue to support your banks in North America and Europe through underwater sea cables. And guess what? The underwater sea cables take the same path as the ancient trade routes. They actually are the same place because the continents haven't shifted in the last 200 to 300 years. And the shortest way from one continent to the other continent will be the logical way to lay the cables. So if you see the invisible, you will be able to achieve the impossible. The Time magazine listed out the Boston Tea Party, the Salt Satyagraha, and the March on Washington as the three most important protests in the world. All three protests were over 190 years. Do you think you can see a common thread between all three protests? It's very interesting. There is one. And the one is of Mahatma Gandhi. Do you know that Boston Tea Party and the Salt Satyagraha were against the same company, the East India Company? And it was Mahatma Gandhi who inspired Dr. Martin Luther King to take on the March on Washington. Just think back and see how these three interesting events over 190 years have the same common thread of nonviolence. All three events were nonviolent. In fact, just to let you know, Martin Luther King, when he came to India in 1959, he said, to most countries, I go as a tourist, but to India, I come as a pilgrim. Mahatma Gandhi has been a favorite of mine, and I've been trying to see the invisible in him, because I think he had the ability to see the invisible. That is how, with a pinch of salt, he shook an empire. I think all of you know I'm talking about the Salt Satyagraha and the Dandi March. The Salt Satyagraha started with 78 people from Ahmedabad and reached Dandi, which is 241 kilometers. When it reached Dandi, it was 100,000 people strong, and he had 300,000 people in India breaking the salt law. But I'd like you to see something even more interesting of how he saw the invisible. Notice the numbers. 241. He decided to do that in 24 days, about 10 miles a day. He decided to stop at 48 villages. I'm assuming he thought, one for lunch and one for dinner. He actually calculated the entire strategy and simplified it and shook the entire empire. You know, 1,362 newspapers actually carried the story, and he did this without a PR agency. I truly believed this when I came across this newspaper of 1930 of Cairo. It's in Arabic. It has the face of Mahatma Gandhi on the front page. You wouldn't believe this, but if you meet me later on, I'll show you. I have the newspaper in my bag with me. People see Gandhi. I see qualities of an entrepreneur, a brand ambassador, a youth icon, a man whose values can make the world a better place today. My journey started when I published a limited edition book of his and released it to the United Nations in 2010. Somebody told me, you're going to be working with Gandhi, it's going to be like riding a tiger. You'll never be able to get off it. In 2010, I didn't understand what that person was telling me. But today, I do. I've recently curated a digital museum in Hyderabad. It's about 12,000 square feet. And I've had the opportunity to speak almost in every continent around the world. The list is just going on. I mean, if you look at London, Singapore, Bangkok, I won't go through the entire list. But this year, hopefully, I'm going to be speaking in Santiago in Chile, Alexandria in Egypt, and finally in Tashkent in Uzbekistan. I've had the privilege of coming here. Now, I'd like to take the opportunity, how can you see the invisible? How can you learn that magic trick? There was a famous movie called The Prestige. One of the dialogues in it said, you set the scene, you state the impossible, and then you give the wow factor. I'm going to attempt and do that with you with one of the learnings of Gandhi. Learning from Gandhi said, use the conscience of your opponent as your ally. Use the conscience of your opponent as your ally. And whenever I have said this, people have told me, Birad, in today's world, nobody has a conscience. If you use this technique, you will lose, because the other person will just beat you in the negotiations. I'm going to show a short film and share with you why I think conscience is still the most important thing that can win a negotiation.
The power of being morally right. In other words, your opponent's conscience is your biggest ally. One of Mahatma Gandhi's strongest strategies was to bring into play the conscience of the opponent as an ally. And this is possible only if you are morally right. However, I was confronted with a question. In today's world, does the opponent have a conscience? What happens to this power of being morally right if the opponent's conscience does not exist? Then a few weeks later, I recalled a clip from a television channel. It shows a leopard killing a baboon, as it's a sworn enemy and a major food source in the wild. But then something changes. I would like you all to see for yourself what changes in this 2-minute film.
It was madness, a wild and reckless risk. But by some miracle of fate, Lakadima silenced the baboon before the enormous troop could notice. In that instant, Lakadima, the curious cub, made one of her many transformations. She was suddenly a slayer of her most feared enemy. Quite suddenly, this already momentous kill took an amazing twist. Something moved in the dead baboon's fur. A day-old newborn. It took a moment for Lakadima to notice. She's always been curious. But instead of a swift bite to the neck, Lakadima stopped, then lay down with the baboon. She didn't know how to react. Hyenas would normally send her scurrying for the trees, but this time, she gently lifted the baby to safety first. Only then did she return to confront the hyena. It was an aggressive defense, protecting the baby, not defending her kill.
I don't think an animal exists, humans included, in this world that does not have a conscience, and I am convinced that the power of the Gandhian principle of being morally right would hold true as long as the animal world exists on this planet.
Thank you. I wish you all the power to see the invisible.